Are child victims of family scapegoating abuse likely to develop chronic illnesses as adults? That's the subscriber question I'm answering in today's episode of Beyond Family Scapegoating Abuse, so stick around. Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Rebecca Mandeville, family systems expert, certified clinical trauma professional, and author of Rejected, Shamed, and Blamed: Help and Hope for Adults in the Family Scapegoat Role. And I wanted to spend a few minutes today answering a subscriber question that has come up quite a bit regarding chronic illnesses and having been in, or you may still be in, the scapegoat role in your family of origin. This was an interesting question for me because it was evident in the research I did on what I eventually named family scapegoating abuse, or FSA, that there seemed to be a variety of reports about physical health problems, chronic health conditions, autoimmune disorders, mysterious illnesses no one had been able to diagnose, mast cell disorders, irritable bowel syndrome. The list goes on and on. To me, it seems statistically significant. I did have more people who identified as being of the female gender respond to my studies, and I saw a lot of females reporting autoimmune disorders. I'm very interested personally also in this question. So I like to first make sure that all of you are aware of the ACE quiz. This is the Adverse Childhood Experiences quiz, and I will link you to it in the comment and in the video description, so you can take that if you haven't already. And in particular, you'll want to notice, I believe it's question number 7. Did a parent or adult in your home ever swear at you, insult you, or put you down? That question is very descriptive, obviously, of the sorts of behaviors you could experience in your family if you're in the family scapegoat or identified patient role. So that one is a question that will most often be a big yes for my clients who take the ACE quiz. But if scapegoating can come up and show itself in many ways, including physical abuse, even sexual abuse, if you're in that role in the family, and you may have developed the fawn submit response to survive in that type of family. You may not feel safe reporting sexual violations within your family. And so we want to, when you take the ACE quiz, not assume that number 7's the only one, the only question that's going to apply to your situation. Once you've taken the ACE quiz, you'll have a number between 1 and 10. The higher the number, the more it would be expected that you may be suffering from some significant effects from growing up in a dysfunctional, abusive family environment. These dysfunctional environments, these dysfunctional family systems, which we could include narcissistic family systems, alcoholic or addict family systems, any system where there's some grave and serious dysfunction going on, where children can end up abused, whether physical or psycho-emotional or sexual. These types of environments are going to be incredibly toxic and incredibly stressful for the child. We know today that persistent trauma leads to toxic stress. Early adversity in life, if you grew up in these types of families, we know from many years of scientific research that that child will grow up more than likely experiencing negative health effects and social outcomes. So when if you've ever been told to just get over it, or get over your childhood, you talk about it too much and no one's listening to what happened to you, that's not okay. And that happens a lot to adult survivors of family scapegoating abuse. Your experiences are dismissed and invalidated. And yet, statistically speaking, and as evidenced by lots of scientific research, you may be suffering from a variety of physical and social and emotional, mental outcomes, so to speak, from having grown up in this type of family. And that deserves to be validated. One of the primary reasons I wrote my book, Rejected, Shamed, and Blamed, was to validate the experiences of the adult survivor of family scapegoating abuse. When I was first writing about this, scapegoating was lumped into narcissistic abuse. And because I've worked in the family systems field for decades, and that's what I specialize in, I know that family scapegoating happens in any type of dysfunctional system. It's not the first time you've heard me say that. So, in my mind, this was not adequate to lump family scapegoating into narcissistic abuse. And taking my research results and forming a book around my research results, I decided to give this form of abuse a name: family scapegoating abuse. Do know that you're represented in some fashion, at least, on this ACE quiz via probably many of the questions there, but in particular, question number 7. And I'm glad to see that is in the ACE quiz. Yes, it is traumatic for a child to be um, sworn at, insulted, to be put down, maybe even sometimes in a sarcastic or quote unquote joking way. I was only kidding. Maybe you were called stupid a lot. What's wrong with you? You're a jerk. These things matter. They wouldn't have ended up in the ACE questionnaire if it was just something you should get over. So that gives you a little bit of ammunition out there in the world where if anyone challenges you on the significance of your scapegoating experiences, if you feel safe to do so, you can always let anyone challenging you know that it is addressed in the ACE questionnaire. And this is really kind of the gold standard in assessing for adverse childhood experiences that can lead to toxic stress. And I'll read to you here just a little passage from the website acesaware.org that I'll be linking you to. That this is really important that you hear this and let it soak in. Repeated or prolonged activation of a child's stress response without the buffering protections of trusted, nurturing caregivers and safe, stable environments leads to long-term changes in the structure and functioning of the developing brain, metabolic, immune, and neuroendocrine responses, and even the way DNA is read and transcribed. Think about that. Even the way DNA is read and transcribed. This is known as the toxic stress response. And my response to all of you who have written in to ask, can family scapegoating lead to chronic health conditions when you are an adult, maybe even as a child? This is my answer. Yes, because family scapegoating abuse can result in toxic stress, in the toxic stress response, which affects all of these biological mechanisms. This is why it's not okay that this type of abuse gets dismissed and ignored and invalidated again and again and again. If we go back to read this first line, I can't think of it of what does not match the scapegoated child's reality. When I read this part here, Repeated or prolonged activation of a child's stress response. Okay, highlight this part. Without the buffering protections of trusted, nurturing caregivers and safe, stable environments. Bingo. Is that not the true circumstance of the scapegoat child? Now, regarding the impact of trauma and toxic stress on health specifically, and again, I'm drawing from the acesaware.org website, the impact of trauma and toxic stress on health. Research shows that individuals who score on the ACE quiz are at significantly increased risk of serious health consequences, including 9 of the 10 leading causes of death in the United States. So hold on, because this is important. People with 4 or more ACEs, and from my experience, the scapegoat adult survivors I work with test for at least 4 and typically are between 6 and 8. All right. So if you take this ACE quiz score via the link I'm going to put up in the video description, and you test 4 or more when you fill out that questionnaire, you are 38 times as likely to attempt suicide, 11 times as likely to have Alzheimer's or dementia, 3 times as likely to have chronic lower respiratory disease, 2 to 2.5 times as likely to have a stroke, cancer, or heart disease, and 1.5 times as likely to have diabetes. Those are quite some stats to quote next time someone tells you to get over your childhood. Now add to this a dynamic that I addressed in one of my earliest videos, You're Faking It. There are many adult survivors of family scapegoating abuse who had their illnesses and injuries so invalidated when they were young or teens or young adults. They invalidate themselves and often don't believe they're ill and imagine that they're psychosomatic, or imagining their symptoms, or because of shame, deeply held toxic shame, in some cases, unconscious shame. They won't go to the doctor at all. How many people maybe are losing their lives because of that? So what's the good news here? Is there any good news here? Because this may be a lot for you to be hearing if you didn't know any of this. Can you help your body? Can you help your mind? Can you help yourself to not be condemned to this destiny that we know can be true for many children who have survived adverse experiences exposed to them chronically, in many cases, in their home environment growing up? So, how do we help ourselves? How do we help ourselves if we had such a rough start and maybe it continued to be rough? Maybe we were always in the scapegoat role in our family system. Maybe we go to what we know. Maybe we married someone, or became involved in another system, a church system, work system, where we continue to experience these toxic stressors. How do we turn back time? Reverse time? Well, we can't, but we can begin to create more healing environments for ourselves. Sometimes we therapists who work with adult survivors of child abuse, particularly psycho-emotional abuse, which I call invisible abuse, we get accused of rushing into telling a client to go no contact. But imagine if you're the therapist and you learn about the client and what's happening in their life, and you can see their distress, their mental and emotional distress, and they may have health issues as well. And you can see it's directly related to the fact that they are engaging with abusive people. They're still being scapegoated. How can we not recommend that they strongly consider going no contact. Frankly, it's nearly impossible to start to heal if you're going to continue engaging with people who are treating you abusively. That's why we make that recommendation, because part of the healing from the toxic stressors that are so damaging to the entire biological system, as well as the mind, heart, spirit, is help the client to address the current stressors. So if you're constantly being triggered and your nervous system's being activated because of the way you're being treated in your family, that's a stressor, and it could be constant and chronic, especially if you're still in the thick of that family system and don't have any distance. We need to help you as therapists to enhance networks of safe, stable, and nurturing relationships and environments that is associated statistically and via research with decreased metabolic, immunologic, neuroendocrine, and inflammatory dysregulation and improved physical and psychological health. So, this is what we need to do as clinicians. We can see that someone is being inundated and swimming in a sea of toxic stressors within that family system. And we're going to recommend that some distance is created. There might be many reasons someone chooses not to go no contact, but as a clinician, I ethically have to recommend it. Does it need to be forever? No, but maybe it should be. It depends what's going on. Building safety, letting that nervous system settle down, finding support, uh, being in a nurturing environment. And sometimes, believe me, it's better to be living alone and create a nurturing environment for yourself or with your pets than living with people who are treating you terribly. The way I like to answer the question of, gee, I have a chronic illness, could it be related to the scapegoating? Yeah, yeah, it can. What I see a lot too is inflammation. A lot of inflammation, some male clients, but a lot of my female clients, their bodies are very, very inflamed, especially midlife. They come to me and they don't know that they're in the scapegoat role often. So that's a whole educational process. But their body's just suffering, and I can see it. And repressing what I call righteous rage, being quiet, fawning, and submitting to survive your family of origin, having secrets that you're keeping. That can build up too. And think of, rage, fiery. We always have the image of fire, fiery rage, anger. What's that doing to the body? How much is repressed rage affecting the immune system? The repressed rage of the abused child is nothing to underestimate. Children at some level unconsciously know they're not being loved, they're not being nurtured, and that something's very wrong. But that rage often gets shoved down, and it will affect the body, in my opinion, in my experience, both personal and professional. So, releasing that righteous rage in safe ways, de-inflaming the body, often through diet as well, is going to be necessary. There's many things we can do to help ourselves. We just need so much more awareness. I'm glad to see that awareness is finally coming. As a clinician, it's just the last 3 years really that I started to get a lot of flyers, continuing education flyers and brochures for complex trauma. It's just this past year I've been seeing some for narcissistic abuse. I've been approached by a well-known continuing ed provider to do continuing ed courses for clinicians on family scapegoating abuse. And if there were 5 of me, I'd have done it by now. I really hope to do that and to do a certification program for clinicians and trauma-informed coaches so they can work with clients in the way that I do. But in the meantime, I hope my videos are helpful for you. If you haven't read my book, Rejected, Shamed, and Blamed, I encourage you to. And love your body, take care of your body, listen to your body's signals. Anxiety is a signal. I see it as a health-seeking signal. Depression's a health-seeking signal. This is not our natural state. We are meant to feel good. We are meant to experience flow. And when there's blockages, when we're stuck, including in our healing, we're not flowing. And our body processes can get stuck. Things aren't flowing. So think about your body today. Listen to your body's signals. What can you do to love your body today, to take care of your body today? Maybe it's sitting for 5 minutes, looking at a tree or birds. It doesn't have to be something fancy. Taking a moment to breathe or do the vagal breathing, which I posted on our community tab. Having a hot cup of chamomile tea. Chamomile's very calming. Lavender essential oils, spa music, music designed to settle down the brainwaves. All this is a start. Your living environment. Is your body comfortable? Does it feel safe in your living environment? Are you in contact with people who are still abusing you? How is that affecting you and your body? These are all questions that you might want to ask yourself. I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.